At a number 10 spot, we have the Mount Baker Theater. Opening up in 1927, the Mount Baker Theater in Bellingham was haunted from day one. Unidentified sounds, chilly spots, strange disembodied voices, balls of light, and even the odd apparition are just a few of the stories that have been noted here. As well, many guests have reported the ghost of a young woman named Judy here, and it's said that she has constant crushes on male visitors and will choose to usher them into their seats if she does have a crush on them. People know it's Judy when they begin to hear their names across the floor and feel as if someone is touching them on their back or shoulders. Another spirit trapped in this hotel is a cat that is found in the basement of the theater. Many claim that whenever they go to the basement and catch a glimpse of this cat, something is bound to happen, as with any black cat theory. Oddly enough, Mount Baker Theater keeps a ghost light on stage during the off hours, claiming that they ward off the evil ones from the theater, but who really knows if this works like they say they do?
But what haunts the theater is as varied as the witnesses who felt it. Maureen believes it could be the spirit of her son Michael, a theater employee in love with the building.
After he died, I was in here at a performance one night, and I felt a little tugging right up here in my hair. And I thought, oh, it's Michael.
Margaret believes it's an impish woman named Judy, who may have lived on the site long before the theater was even built. This may be a ghostly picture of her.
I think she's nice. I don't think she's malicious, but I think she does like to tease, especially the men that are here alone.
At a number 9 spot, we have the Maury Island incident. Weeks before the infamous Roswell accident, Red Krisman and Harold Dahl had their own encounter that shocked many people at the time. It all started on June 24, 1947, when pilot Kenneth Arnold claimed to see a string of 9 shiny unidentified flying objects traveling around 1,200 miles per hour past Mount Rainier. After it got nationwide attention, many people came to say that they too have seen the UFOs flying. Eventually, the story would be relayed to Red Krisman and Harold Dahl, who both claimed to have fragments from the supposed UFO they saw. When they interviewed Harold, he would go on to say, quote, "On June 21st, 1947, in the afternoon about 2 o'clock, I as captain was steering my patrol boat close to the shore of a bay on Maury Island. On board were 2 crewmen, my 15-year-old son and his dog. As I looked from the wheel on my boat, I noticed 6 very large donut-shaped aircraft. They also made a claim that they were approached by a man in black later on who told them to never speak of the incident again. Eventually, the FBI started to investigate this case and stated that this incident was a hoax, but who knows? This really wouldn't be the first time the US government was hiding UFOs, right? Number 8, the Black Cat at Stevens Hall. Built in 1895 in Pullman, Washington, the Stevens Hall was once praised as the, quote, most beautiful building on the campus. But once people started stepping foot inside, they took back these claims. Kind of like when you meet someone that is physically attractive, but just has a terrible personality. This is that place. It all started as a hangout spot for students at Washington State University. Here they would dance, drink, and tell stories to one another. One story told at the hall was Edgar Allan Poe's The Black Cat. It was read on Halloween every single year until one year the students believed the story had come to life. Eventually, many people would see sightings of this black cat in Stevens Hall. Then on one Halloween, a black cat stood in front of the house's mother's door, which is basically the person who runs the house, and when the students opened the door to see what the black cat was hiding, they found that the girl behind the door had passed away, and many people believed it was caused by this black cat. Number 7, the Iron Goat Trail. In 1893, a railroad was constructed across the Cascades of Washington. This would be great news because it would finally mean that Seattle would be connected with the Midwest and many other states. Except once trains started to use this railroad, they ran into many problems. To begin with, trains with engines on each end had to struggle up switchbacks to reach the summit. And the worst part was, since it was in the mountains, snow could reach up to 25 feet high in some places, which would just have hundreds of people digging out in the snow in order for the train to go through. Then in February 1920, the deadliest avalanche in American history hit the railroad, derailing carts and killing a total of 96 people. And at a time, the rescue mission was nearly impossible due to the extreme weather conditions present on the mountain. Now many hikers come across the area where the accident occurred, and many find themselves leaving immediately the moment they got there. This is because some hikers have reported hearing noticeable noises, screams coming from the tunnels, while others have spotted apparitions of men looking zombie-like walking towards them. All these components make this place one of Washington State's most haunted places. Number 6, Port Townsend, Washington. Considered to be one of America's most haunted cities, Port Townsend definitely has a dark history to back up that claim. The thing about this place is that paranormal activity isn't in a single building or two, but they say that spirits roam freely around the town and there's not a place in town where you don't have the chance to see a ghost. For example, the Manresa Castle located in the city was once visited by ghost adventures and they supposedly captured children's laughter on film, as well as feeling as though someone or something was pressing against them the whole time. Then we have the Palace Hotel, which used to be known as the Palace of Suites due to the woman who used to live there, but many visitors claim these women never left. Well, that is their spirit, of course. They say a woman in blue exposes herself to guests and staff members while the other spirits try to play pranks on other people. And last, we have the Rothschild House, which is Washington's most haunted museum, where the former family members of the home seem to not like having strangers inside of their place. Guests have reported things ranging from slamming doors to seeing some of their former family members in their rooms. Regardless, this town is extremely beautiful, but if you decide to visit, try to avoid some of the ghosts I just mentioned. But it looks like you really can't, because they're everywhere. In the hump of our list, we have the Caddy of Cadborough Bay. Wait, did you think we can escape the Loch Ness Monster? Because we just can't. There's one in every single state. And for Washington, they have the Cadabrosaurus, nicknamed the Caddy. It is said to be a 20-foot serpentine beast that inhabits the northern part of the west coast. It's described as having the head of a horse and the body of a very large eel. Eyewitness reports have been coming in for the past 200 years with 300 different sightings. Even the Inuit people drew this creature on their canoes in hopes they could ward it off once they entered in the water. As with all these Loch Ness Monster hypes, people claim to have found and captured ones, but eventually it gets to a point when you can't even tell what's real and what's fake. So at the end of the day, you guys have to be the judge of that.
There's a whole family of these darn things.
Last year, he shot this video of what looks like a sea monster.
Okay, just keep watching. Now watch. Its head's gonna come out. Its head's gonna pop out. Check this out.
It's blue. So those aren't sea lions. You've seen sea lions. Held up. It's got humps that are...
They're 20 to 30 feet long. They're long, skinny things.
Oh, that is no. What the heck is that?
Number 4, Bigfoot. Yes, the hairy creature has made its way back onto this list simply because this is the state where it was first documented and popularized. To this day, this is the state where the most sightings are recorded, so it's either everyone is just lying in Washington, or there may actually be a Bigfoot in their woods. Bigfoot has gained worldwide attention, but for those who don't know, they're basically 7 to 8 feet tall hairy humanoids with extreme strength. To this day, the search for Bigfoot is still a mystery, and there has never been solid evidence to prove the general public that such a beast could exist, other than these footprints, but I don't even know if they're real. You could just draw it out with your hand. But hey, if you live in Washington, you have the best chance of actually discovering one, but that outcome would probably not be good for you because they're not that much a friendly creature. Number 3, Tacoma Old City Hall. Serving as City Hall in the early 20th century, this 10-story clock tower is haunted by a single prankster ghost named Gus. Many don't know the origins of this ghost, but it is said that he may have been a former criminal that was held in the building's old city jail and passed away there. So as I mentioned, this building served as City Hall until 1957. This was a time when the City Hall was being neglected, no maintenance, no payments, so eventually the building was too unsafe to work in. Nowadays, visitors of the old City Hall claim that prankster ghosts have taken over the building. For example, Gus is known to toss objects in the air at random, turn on lights on and off, and sometimes he would just completely shatter light bulbs. At one point, the sightings were so frequent, the police believed it was a real person trespassing the property, but upon further investigation, it was discovered that no one was even there. Some even say that Gus haunts the clock tower and they are known to randomly ring the bell every so often, but it's usually at night when the building is completely empty. Number 2, Kel's Irish Pub. Considered to be a family-friendly bar / restaurant, the Kel's Irish Restaurant and Pub is said to be one of the most haunted eateries in the entire nation. To start, the pub is located in the Butterworth building, which is a former mortuary, so you kinda know where this story is going. This would basically mean that the entire building was used to store deceased bodies. Throughout the years, many spiritualists have been brought to the Butterworth building in an attempt to initiate meaningful conversation with alleged spirits who remain there. Nowadays, visitors report sightings of a ghost of a young girl dressed in a scarlet velvet dress there. Others have spotted the ghost of an older gentleman as well, named Charlie, who would just appear at random throughout the entire building. Basically, this means that if you decide to visit this place and eat here, chances are you're probably going to encounter something supernatural, but don't worry, because they say that the spirits here are mainly positive, so not much to worry about, right? Number 1, the 13 Steps to Hell. Built in 1901, the Maltby Cemetery in Woodinville, Washington is said to be one of the go-to cemeteries if you want to experience some sort of paranormal activity. The most famous legend about the cemetery is the story of the 13 Steps to Hell. The stairs appeared to lead to nowhere and descended into a ground as they are located in the center of the cemetery. They allegedly led to an underground family tomb. Even though you were only a few feet away, it was said that when you went down the stairs, you abruptly lost the ability to hear anything above you or around you. It is said that if you turn around and face the bottom of the stairs, you could catch a glimpse of hell yourself. Local lore claims that occasionally people would descend down the stairs and just never come back up. Even though the steps were removed many years ago, there are still stories concerning them, and many people don't even know the real mystery behind these steps in the first place. At a number 10 spot, we have the Phantom of the Opera. The Phantom of the Opera is a well-known legend that is closely linked to the history of the Opera Garnier in Paris. This legend originated from a fire that occurred in the Salle Pelletier, the predecessor of the Opera Garnier, in 1873. A pianist named Ernest was horribly disfigured in the fire and lost his companion as a result. Overcome with grief, he chose to isolate himself from the world and even took refuge in the basement of this place, which was still under construction at the time. Ernest spent the remainder of his life in the shadows of this building and only ate fish from the underground lake of the opera. His sorrowful cries could be heard in the background of performances, as many guests would report. After his disappearance, strange events started to occur in the Opera Garnier. For example, a machinist was found hanged, but when they did investigation, there was no rope to be found. And also, a chandelier fell during one performance, killing a spectator seated in the seat number 13. All these mysterious occurrences were attributed to the Phantom of the Opera, who is believed to still haunt the halls of the famous theater. These mysteries have captured the imaginations of many writers, including Gaston Leroux. He wrote the novel The Phantom of the Opera in 1910, which is a worldwide success and largely based on this legend. Even today, the legend continues to live on as Lodge number 5 in Opera Garnier is permanently rented by a mysterious stranger. This lodge is strategically located within the theater, allowing its occupant to see the performances but remain unseen. At a number 9 spot, we have the Beast of Gévaudan. The Beast of Gévaudan remains one of the most intriguing and mysterious legends in French history. The terror caused by this man-eating beast or beast lasted for 3 years, from 1764 all the way to 1767. The attacks took place in the Margeride Mountains of south central France and spanned over an area of 90 by 80 kilometers. Eyewitnesses reported that the beast was formidable with sharp teeth and an immense tail. The descriptions of the animal also varied widely, with some saying it was a striped hyena, while others claimed it was like a large wolf, dog, or even a wolf-dog hybrid. Regardless of its actual appearance, the Beast of Gévaudan was known for its brutal methods of attack, which often involved tearing out the throats of his victims. The Kingdom of France took threat to this beast very seriously and even devoted a significant amount of manpower and wealth to hunting this animal down. The resources of several nobles, soldiers, and royal huntsmen, and even civilians were used in the pursuit of this beast. But despite their efforts, the attacks persisted and the number of victims continued to rise. The exact number of victims is not known, but estimates suggest that the beast killed and injured hundreds of people. Although the beast was reported killed several times, the attacks did not stop until 1767. To this day, the identity of the Beast of Gévaudan remains a mystery, and its legends continue to captivate people's imaginations, and if there was really a man-eating beast in France during this time. At a number 8 spot, we have the father of cinematography. Louis Le Prince is a name that should ring a bell to all those into cinema, as he is widely regarded as the true father of cinematography. However, despite his monumental contribution to the world of motion pictures, his name is often overshadowed by figures like Thomas Edison and the Lumiere brothers. The reason for this is that Le Prince disappeared before he could showcase his groundbreaking invention to the world. In 1888, Le Prince shot the first film in history in Leeds, England. However, instead of rushing to show the world what he created, he chose to be patient and refine his invention. After 2 years of careful tweaking, he was finally ready to present his work to the public. Then in September 1890, he boarded a train to Paris with all the materials and patents he needed for the showcase. But unfortunately, he never made it to the French capital. His friends were waiting in Paris to pick him up, but they found no trace of him. This mystery sparked many rumors and theories about what could have happened to Le Prince. Some people said that his brother Albert killed him over their inheritance, while others believed that he drowned himself or just decided to flee to start a new life. But the most tantalizing theory was that Thomas Edison himself was behind Le Prince's disappearance, as he wanted to ensure his monopoly over the invention of cinema. Despite the many theories surrounding his disappearance, one thing is for certain: Louis Le Prince left a lasting impact on the world of motion pictures and will forever be known, at least for me, as a visionary inventor. All the way at a number 7 spot, we have the murdered monks. The Abbaye de Montemer is a 12th century monastery located in Normandy, France, and it is considered by many to be one of the most haunted places in the country as well. The story of Mortimer Abbey begins with the Cistercian monks who built the monastery on marshy land that was referred to as the Dead Pond, a name that would eventually become the moniker for the abbey itself. Despite the monastery's size and grandeur, it was often plagued by financial difficulties, which ultimately led to its downfall. By the time of the French Revolution, the abbey was in a state of disrepair, but a small community of monks still lived within its walls. However, their presence was not enough to save them from the wrath of the revolutionaries, who decided to storm the abbey in 1790, killing 4 monks who lived there and leaving a scene of blood and chaos behind. Since then, the abbey has been the site of numerous ghostly sightings, with rumors of ghostly monks haunting the ruins. Fortunately, there has even been accounts of a benevolent ghost there, dressed in the robes of a monk, appearing during World War II and even saving an English paratrooper from an enemy attack. And if you decide to visit, there's a higher chance you'll probably encounter one of the more angered spirits of the 4 murdered monks, but let's just hope you encounter this one. Number 6, the Mont Saint-Michel. The Mont Saint-Michel, a settlement located on the border of Brittany and Normandy, is a place of both beauty and terror. This majestic fortress built on an island is surrounded by the sea, which makes it a popular tourist destination, but this fairy tale-like location still has a dark and haunting side to it. According to the legend, the island was discovered when Saint Albert received a dream from Archangel Michael, directing him to build a monastery there. Despite initially disregarding the vision, the Archangel burned a hole in the bishop's head to reinforce the message, and the monastery was built. The island has been a place of worship and pilgrimage for centuries and has been the subject of many myths and ghost stories over the years as well. The island is known for their Battle of Mont Saint-Michel, one of the bloodiest days in French history. It is said that the wails of English soldiers who lost their lives during the war can still be heard on calm days with low tides. Many people believe that the souls of these soldiers are unable to rest and continue to haunt the island, never moving to the afterlife. Before the French Revolution, the island was inhabited by monks and other pious people who decided to bury their dead in the walls of the church. When the revolution reached Mont Saint-Michel, the monks were forced to abandon the island, and the abbey was then turned into a prison. Some say that the ghosts of the dead monks who were disturbed by the desecration of their once sacred location still roam the island as well. And the hump of our list, we have the Jack and Jill nursery rhyme. As you already know, nursery rhymes' origins aren't as charming as their true story. One of these is the Jack and Jill nursery rhyme. It has 2 popular interpretations. One is tied to the French Revolution, and the other one is tied to King Charles I of England. In the first interpretation, Jack represents King Louis XVI of France, and Jill represents Queen Mary Antoinette. The rhyme tells the story of their execution during the Reign of Terror in 1793. But in the second interpretation, the rhyme revolves around King Charles I's attempt to increase taxes on liquid measures. The standard volume of Jack was reduced and the tax remained the same. A gill, which was twice the volume of a Jack, was also reduced as a result. The volume mark on the standard Jack measure was indicated with a crown, and the reduction of the volume caused the crown mark to fall, leading to the lyrics, Jack fell down and broke his crown.
Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after.
Number 4, the worst barber ever. Travel back in time to medieval Paris and the Ile de la Cite, when a barber was known to frequently receive foreign students who were housed by neighboring cantons. Unfortunately, some of these young students would then vanish without a trace. In those days of widespread poverty and frequent attacks, it was believed that these students were victims of a violent crime, and with no family left in Paris to inquire about their disappearance, their fate was left to speculation. However, one day, an unusual incident changed the course of events. A dog was barking loudly in front of a barber's door for several days, and its master, a German student, had not returned from his appointment. The police were then called in to investigate and made a shocking discovery. The barber was cutting the throats of his young clients, then disposing of their bodies through a trap door in the cellar of the pastry chef next door. It was said that the pastry chef used the bodies to make some of the best pies in all of Paris. The barber and pastry chef paid the price for their crimes, and they were burned alive in a public square. Their houses were razed to the ground, and today the former site of the bakery is used as a garage for the Paris police. Number 3, the haunted lighthouse at Tevennec. Despite its picturesque location on the coast, the Tevennec lighthouse was notorious for the tales of madness and death that surrounded the 23 lighthouse operators who lived and worked there before it was automated in 1910. The area around the lighthouse has a rich maritime history and was known for their frequent shipwrecks that occurred there, including the crash of the French ship Sedusant during the Napoleonic Wars. which led to the death of hundreds of sailors. According to local legends, the area is also haunted by the spirits of the Celtic seafarers and warriors, who has been said to haunt the lighthouse since its inception. The tales of madness that befell the lighthouse operators are particularly eerie. The first operator, Henry Guzenik, was reportedly driven to madness by ghostly voices that spoke to him in the Breton language and told him to leave the lighthouse every single day. One of these successors are said to have had similar experiences, leading the French government to make Tevennec a two-man lighthouse and even recruited married couples to work there. However, few couples were willing to live and work at this lighthouse, for obvious reasons, and those that did suffered untimely and tragic deaths, including a family with 3 children and a cow.
But it's not relevant, is it?
The story surrounding the Tevennec Lighthouse is filled with the tales of failed exorcisms, crucifixes installed to ward off evil spirits, and even a violent storm that arrived just as one of the operators were giving birth inside of the lighthouse. So definitely one of the places in France that you don't want to visit. Number 2, the encounter of Marius de Wilde. The French commune of Coralbo made headlines in September 10, 1954, when a local railway worker named Marius de Wilde claimed to have been visited by extraterrestrials. According to the reports, de Wilde claimed that a cigar-shaped UFO landed near his garden, and 2 small creatures in spacesuits resembling dive costumes emerged. The UFO shot a beam of light that paralyzed de Wilde, and by the time he was recovered, the aliens are already getting ready to leave. Despite an investigation by the authorities that found unusual marks on the railway tracks, there was no concrete evidence of an alien encounter. The stories of de Wilde's experience with the extraterrestrials quickly was widespread and reached the wine-producing village of Châteauneuf-du-Pape, located hundreds of miles from Coralbo. The local mayor and town council were keen to protect their citizens and vineyards from potential alien invaders, and as a result, they passed a municipal decree that banned all UFOs from landing, taking off, or flying over the community. Which is definitely strange, but I guess the UFOs listened, because ever since they made this decree, they haven't seen one since. Number 1, the ghost of Pont-Marie. The City of Love is also the city of spine-chilling ghost stories, one of which stems from the era of France during World War II. This period saw the division of France into 2 parts, one directly occupied by the Germans and the other being a puppet state by them. However, amidst the hardship and turmoil, a brave woman rose to the occasion and joined the French resistance. This Parisian lady was married to a resistance fighter and was tasked with collecting information from an SS officer, with whom she started an affair. One fateful winter night, she was scheduled to meet her husband on Pont-Marie Bridge, which spans across the River Seine, but he ended up never arriving. Understanding that something was amiss, the woman wept, waiting through the night until she eventually froze to death. Ever since, reports have surfaced of her ghost appearing on cold nights on this bridge, still crying and waiting for her husband to show up. At the number 10 spot, we have the Island of the Dolls. Nestled between the serene canals of Xochimilco in Mexico lies the Island of the Dolls, a place that has gained a haunting reputation as one of the creepiest destinations in the world. Why, you may ask? Well, because the island is home to hundreds of abandoned dolls, which at first glance may seem eerie, but their presence is actually the result of a sorrowful story. According to the legend, the island is haunted by the spirit of a young girl who died there in mysterious circumstances. Visitors to the island have reported that the dolls' heads and arms move on their own, and their eyes can be seen opening and closing, leading some to believe that the girl's spirit still clings to these dolls. However, the true story behind the dolls is far more touching. Don Julian Santana Barrera, the island's caretaker, stumbled upon the body of a young girl near the canals one day. He then saw a doll floating in the water that he believed belonged to this girl, and in memory of her, he hung the doll from a nearby tree. This was just the beginning, as he began to hang more and more dolls in an attempt to appease her spirit, as well as other entities he believed were present on the island. Sadly, Barrera passed away in 2001, but his legacy lives on, as the Island of Dolls has since become a very popular tourist attraction. Number 9, Chiloé Island. This remote island located off the coast of Chile is a place of unmatched natural beauty and breathtaking landscapes. Yet despite its stunning scenery, Chiloé Island remains a largely undiscovered gem, with only a smattering of brave souls venturing there each year. This lack of tourism is not due to its location or weather, but rather its reputation as one of the most haunted places in all of Chile. Long before the Spanish colonized Chiloé Island, it was home to a coven of warlocks known as brujos. These powerful sorcerers lived in these caves, shrouded in secrecy and terrorizing the local townspeople with their dark magic. The brujo rejected Catholicism and instead pledged their allegiance to the devil, undergoing a debaptism ceremony that required them to remain under a waterfall for 40 days. This mystical transformation was said to give the Brujos the power to transform into animals, cast powerful curses, and control the elements. The Brujos were guarded by local children known as Imbunshu, who sustained themselves on the bodies of the recently deceased brought to them from the local cemetery. The details of this coven only came to light during widespread witch hunts that swept the island in the 1880s, leading to the capture and execution of many Brujos. Despite this, rumors persist to this day of ghostly sightings, strange noises, and ghostly apparitions that haunt Kilauea Island, warning visitors to stay far away from this cursed place. At number 8 spot, we have the Poveglia Island. Poveglia Island, located in Italy's South Lagoon between Venice and Lido, holds a rich and haunting history that dates back to the 5th century. Originally, it was inhabited by locals who were forced onto the small, easily defensible island by invaders. But when the bubonic plague swept through the region in 1348, the island was abandoned and became a dumping ground for anyone who showed symptoms of the illness. As a result, thousands perished on this island, and it remained uninhabited until the 19th century, when a mental institution was built there. Rumors abound about the institution and its infamous doctor who allegedly conducted cruel experiments on the patients and ultimately took his life by jumping from the bell tower. The ghost of the doctor is said to still roam the island, and nearby residents have reported hearing the bell from the tower ringing randomly, which is usually attributed to this doctor. In 2014, the Italian government put Poveglia Island up for auction, further perpetuating its mysterious and its macabre reputation as one of the world's most haunted places. Number 7, the Isle of Wight. The Isle of Wight in England is considered to be one of the most haunted locations globally as per local ghost walk experts. One of the most famous spirits is that of Michael Mori, who was executed here in 1737 for killing his own grandson. His body was left to decompose on Downend Gibbet at Gallows Hill, and it's said that his ghost still roams the area carrying a large axe. The Old Royal National Hospital is also said to be haunted by many of these apparitions. Their tuberculosis patients and their spirits are believed to remain here, and people have reported seeing ghostly figures crying, groaning, while others have spotted ghostly nurses, horses, and other creatures in and around the Ventor Botanic Gardens on the island. The Priory Bay Hotel on the island is also said to be haunted by a ghostly young girl who can be seen running down the hallways and crying for her lost dog. Visitors have reported hearing her say, "What have you done with my dog?" as she rushes through the corridors. So all in all, another island you wouldn't want to be stuck on. Number 6, Seguin Island. The Seguin Island Lighthouse is a historic lighthouse located on Seguin Island off the coast of Maine. The lighthouse was built in 1795 and is one of the oldest lighthouses in the United States. With that being said, also considered one of the most haunted lighthouses in the US as well. The lighthouse has a rich history and has been the subject of many stories and legends over the years. One such legend is the ghost of a former lighthouse keeper named Isaac Dunham, who is said to haunt the lighthouse to this day. According to the legend, Dunham drowned in the waters nearby the island after going out on a routine walk. Now his ghost haunts the lighthouse and the waters around it. They say he appears to visitors who walk near the lighthouse or the island, and other times his face will be seen poking out of the water, watching your every move. Another legend associated with Seguin Island is that it is haunted by the ghost of a woman whose husband was killed on the island. The legend says that the woman's ghost can be heard crying and moaning at night, and that her ghostly figure can sometimes be seen wandering the island. In the hump of our list, we have the Long Beach Island. The Long Beach Island in New Jersey has a dark and eerie history, particularly at the site of the Powhatan shipwreck. On April 18, 1854, the passenger ship crashed on the shores of the island, leading to the untimely deaths of all 50 passengers. Edward Jennings, the owner of the health mansion, was tasked with giving the departed a proper burial. However, his reputation was tarnished when the locals believed he had robbed their graves, taking the passengers' valuables before burying them. Despite never facing charges, Jennings became an outcast in the community, and his grip on reality slowly slipped away. People claim to have seen him talking to invisible entities and arguing with people who just weren't there. This eventually led to his move to California, where he met his end in a bar fight. The ghosts of the 50 passengers who perished in the Powhatan shipwreck are said to still haunt the island, specifically now known as Surf City Hotel. People have reported seeing ghostly apparitions of the deceased and strange, as well as glowing orbs throughout the area. Some even claim to spot a Union Army soldier missing an arm walking along the beach here. So as with all the other islands on this list, visit with caution. Number 4, Belle Isle's Lady in White. In Detroit, Michigan, there's an island called the Belle Isle. This 982-acre island is used for picnics, hikes, and home of the only marble lighthouse. Other than that, everything else on this island is shrouded in mystery and up for speculation. Legend of the island follows the story of the chief's daughter and a haunting bridge. The chief was concerned that his daughter's beauty would attract vast amounts of suitors. So to combat this, he made a deal with the snake goddess of the island, and the chief asked the goddess to protect his daughter. The goddess would agree, but not for nothing. She would ask for the daughter to live out the rest of her days on the island, never being able to leave it. And to this day, the daughter is still said to walk the island, with many visitors reporting that she would try to lure them into the forest by telling that she is looking for someone and just needs help. She supposedly takes her victims to a nearby bridge where she drowns them. And it's said that if you go to this bridge yourself and honk on your car 3 times, she'll appear right before your eyes. Number 3, the Gray Man. Pawleys Island in South Carolina is a summer resort town that boasts of beautiful beaches, tranquil marshes, historic homes, but beyond its natural beauty, it is also home to the mysterious legend of the Gray Man, who is a figure said to appear on the beach prior to every major hurricane that has struck the island for more than 200 years. According to the locals, seeing the Gray Man is a sign of danger for impending storms. And obviously for hurricanes, as we just mentioned. Eyewitness accounts vary, but most people describe the Gray Man as a figure dressed in all gray clothing. Obviously, they appear on the beach either stepping out of the dunes or waving to boaters from the shore before vanishing without a word. The majority of the sightings have occurred on Pawleys Island, but there's also been reports of sightings in other coastal towns nearby. One of the most famous encounters with the Gray Man took place in 1989, just 2 days before Hurricane Hugo roared ashore. Locals Jim and Clara Moore were taking a walk on the beach when they saw a lone figure walking towards them. As he got closer, Jim raised his hand to say hi, but the figure disappeared right before his eyes. Their home suffered little damage during the storm, and Claire attributes their good fortune to the Gray Man and the Lord. The next time you're on vacation in Pawleys Island, keep an eye out for the Gray Man. And remember, if you see him, it might be wise to heed his warning and just seek shelter. Number 2, Dead Man's Island. Dead Man Island, located in Stanley Park in Vancouver, Canada, is said to be one of the most haunted islands in North America. The small island has a long and tumultuous history dating back to the 1800s. According to local legend, the island was the site of a fierce battle between northern and southern indigenous nations. The southern nation kidnapped 200 women, children, and elders from the north and held them captive. When 200 young northern warriors traded themselves for the hostages' freedom, they were killed on the spot. And the horrors didn't stop here. The island was later used as a quarantine station during a smallpox outbreak and was the site of a logging dispute in the late 1800s and early 1900s. It is said to be haunted by the many ghosts who have died on this island, and many have reported strange noises and supernatural occurrences since. Despite its haunted reputation, the island is off limits to the public, and honestly wouldn't see a reason why anyone would want to go to an island named Dead Man. Number 1, Doxa Island. Chilling tales of the island of the ghosts, also known as Doxa Island, has been passed down through generations in Croatia. The island holds a dark and sinister past, as it was the site of a brutal massacre of 53 men during the Second World War. The men were taken from the SS and rowed out to the island, where they were viciously murdered and left to rot in the sun. For over 5 decades, the island was feared, with locals warning each other to stay away from its shores. Then in 2009, the remains of several adult men were uncovered on the island, leading authorities to believe that the mass grave on Doxa Island held the remains of SS men and sympathizers who were brutally executed during the war. No one really visits these islands, but the select few that have said that they see men dressed in their war uniforms still walking around, looking starved to death, kind of reminiscent of their last days there. Number 10, the entrance to hell. The Kola Super Deep Borehole is a remarkable feat of Soviet engineering, marking a time when the race to the depths of the earth was at its peak. Located in the northwestern region of Russia, the borehole is a collection of numerous holes that branch off from a central hole, with the deepest SG3 reaching a staggering 12,261 meters into the Earth's crust. Despite its depth, the diameter of the hole is no wider than a dinner plate. However, it is deeper than the Marianas Trench, the deepest point in the ocean, and equivalent in height to the summits of Mount Everest and Mount Fuji stacked on top of one another. The Kola Super Deep borehole project started in 1970 and lasted until 1992, when it was brought to an end due to the collapse of the Soviet Union and high temperatures at the bottom of the hole reaching a scorching 180 degrees Celsius. The project was a success, providing a wealth of scientific insights into the geology of the Earth, including a surprising discovery of water-saturated rocks and the presence of 14 species of fossilized microorganisms. However, the Kola Super Deep borehole also inspired a number of fanciful rumors and legends. One of the most widely spread tales is that the drill broke through a layer of rock and discovered a super hot cavern, with scientists hearing hellish hounds and tormented screams when they lowered a microphone into the pit. Although this is unverified nonsense, it is easy to see why the Kola Super Deep borehole earned the nickname the entrance to hell. And if you guys want to hear some of these sounds, people post it on YouTube, and search it up and you can hear it on your own. But don't be fooled, because these are likely a hoax. Number 9, the Octavius. The story of the Octavius is one of the eeriest tales in maritime lore. In 1761, the Octavius set sail from the port of London, fully manned with a crew, the skipper, his wife, and his son, and cargo bound for China. The ship arrived safely in China loaded with goods for Britain, and then set off on its return voyage. However, the captain decided to take a detour via the notoriously treacherous Northwest Passage, which is a journey that had never been before accomplished. Unfortunately, the Octavius and its crew were never heard from again and were declared lost. Fast forward to October 11th, 1775, the whaling ship Herald was working off the coast of Greenland when it spotted a weather-beaten sailing ship. The crew of the Herald boarded the vessel and discovered a horror story. The entire 28-man crew was found frozen to death in their quarters, and the captain was seated at the desk with the ship's logbook open in front of him. The captain's wife and son were also found frozen to death on a bunk. The crew of the Herald was terrified by the discovery and fled back to their ship with just the first and last pages of their ship's logbook. According to the pages of the logbook, the Octavius became trapped in the ice of the Arctic, and the entire crew perished as a result. The crew of the Herald believed the Octavius was cursed and left it adrift, and it has never been seen again. Number 8, the Phantom Trapper. The Phantom Trapper is a legendary ghostly figure located in Labrador, Canada. He was a man named Sal Gillingham who made his living by trapping in the area. The story about him vary, but one version say that he became known as the Smoker for making and selling a potent alcohol from pine cones, sugar, and yeast. Another version paints him as a woman attacker who sold valuable furs and also made alcohol. Either way, he was caught by the Mounties and went to jail, but upon release, he started selling alcohol again in a white outfit made of white animal skins and white Comatic kegs. He met his end by either being shot, lost in a storm, or died from his own alcohol. The legend says that his ghost continues to drive his white dog team through the night in the Labrador area and is sometimes seen by people passing by. Some tales also suggest that he saves people who are lost in the blizzards, but they're unable to see him clearly. The howl of the wind in Labrador is sometimes accompanied by the sound of his dog team, and people still hear them but never really see clear tracks in the snow. Number 7, the Arctic Circle Hot Springs Resort. The Arctic Circle Hot Springs Resort, nestled in central Alaska, is a location with a rich history that is only heightened by the eerie occurrences reported by staff and guests alike. The 400-gallon-per-minute hot spring was first discovered in the 1890s by a prospector and eventually became the property of Franklin Leach in 1918. He and his wife turned the 320-acre estate into a resort with gardens, a restaurant, and various other amenities. However, after financial difficulties, the resort was forced to close in 2002. The stories of ghostly activity at the resort are intriguing, and they happened well before the place was closed down. A female ghost is sent to haunt the third-floor library, and kitchen staff reported hearing unexplained whistling noises when they worked there. A visiting teacher from California recorded an attempt to communicate with the late Mrs. Leach, sensing her presence and witnessing doors opening and closing on their own. Laverna Miller, who purchased the property in 1980, also experienced the chandelier swinging without any sort of explanation and spoke to guests who heard ghostly footsteps on the stairs during their stay. These spirits are known to be resistant to changes in the building, becoming even more active during construction, which they move objects or even bringing paintings to life. The resort was even visited by the Travel Channel Ghost Hunting series in 2012, where they discovered some pretty convincing evidence, so go check it out if you have the chance. At number 6 spot, we have Refusing to Leave. On the 15th 15th of March 1853, Augustus Richard Pierce, which is a fur trader who worked as a post manager for the Hudson Bay Company, passed away. Pierce had requested that his remains not be buried at Fort McPherson. However, his supervisor, Roderick McFarland, disregarded his wish and had him interred on the spot. Then in December of 1859, McFarland was prompted by Pierce's widow to retrieve and relocate his body to a different location. After digging up his remains, the workers were shocked to find that Pierce looked just as he did in life, with no signs of decay or decomposition despite being buried for 6 years. Terrified and unnerved, the team began their journey to Fort Good Hope, traveling 300 miles by dog sled. Along the way, they experienced strange and ghostly events, such as hearing a voice reminiscent of Pierce warning of approaching wolves, and the ghost of Pierce himself appearing to McFarland and his roommate as they slept. Despite these eerie encounters, Pierce finally found his final resting place at Fort Good Hope. At the hump of our list, we have the SS Bechimo. Embark on an eerie journey with me to the depths of the Arctic Ocean, where legend has it that a ghostly ship haunts the Seahorse Islands near Point Barrow in Alaska. The story of the SS Bechimo is a mysterious and fascinating tale of the Swedish cargo steamer that met its fate in the ice. After 20 successful years of operation, the ship was trapped in the ice and was eventually abandoned in 1931. Despite its abandonment, the SS Bechimo continued to float aimlessly in the Arctic, with real sightings reported by both Inuit residents and explorers alike in the decades following. Despite its frequent appearance, no one dared to board the ship or attempt to salvage it. The ghost ship sightings were so frequent and credible that many continued to report seeing it as late as 1969. Despite a concentrated effort to locate the ship's wreckage in 2006, it was never found. Some even claim that the apparition of the SS Bechimo still silently glides on the icy waters of the Arctic, a haunting reminder of its tragic past. And this is a story that will leave you captivated, because you're just wondering if the SS Bechimo is truly a ghost ship, or it's simply a legend that has taken a life of its own. Number 4, a Quivitoc. A Quivitoc is a legendary, frightening being from Greenlandic folklore, often depicted as a ghostly man who lives in the mountains. The origins of the spooky tale stem from real-life practice of banishing criminals to the wilderness, where they were effectively doomed to die. This banishment was seen as a death sentence, as surviving alone in Greenland was nearly impossible. Those banished to the mountains were considered Quivitocs and were believed to continue as ghostly beings even after their deaths. To many Greenlanders, Quivitocs are very real and feared entities. One man explained a time when he was walking into the hills near his home in North Greenland, when he stumbled upon a pile of rocks with human bones underneath. This sight was not uncommon in Greenland, where bones are often preserved due to the dry and cold climate, but out of fear that it could be a Quivitoc, he quickly ran back home. And this is the case for many people in Greenland. Some Greenlanders are even too scared to even walk inland, much less alone, for fear of encountering one of these Quivitocs. But if you do plan on going out into the wilderness, be advised to carry some specific items, such as a match, a needle, and a thread, as these are a form of protection in case you ever meet this creature. And this is because these items can be traded in hopes of avoiding harm. So just in case you're living in Greenland or visiting, keep a list of these items ready. Number 3, the Myling. Norse folklore is rich with creatures that lurk in the forest and come from a magical realm. Among these creatures are the Mylingar, which are these ghost children who were born out of wedlock and disposed of by their mothers in times when having a child outside of marriage was considered a great shame. These children who died unbaptized will become Mylingar, which are known to cry out at night from their burial grounds. Mylingar were not just sad children, they could also be vengeful and seek revenge against their parents, causing disaster and death in their path. Some would reveal their parents by singing songs of their fate, and others would nurse their mothers to death, and still others would appear on their mother's wedding day and dance her to death. If sufficiently vengeful, Mylingar might not only go after their parents, but also other children who answered their call. Less is known about the punishment fathers received from the Mylingar. They were also an echo of the unequal blame women receive for childbirth and unplanned pregnancy throughout history. So if you ever hear a child's cry in the woods at night or under the floor beds of your house, have a name ready and beware of streams and brooks after dark. At our number 2 spot, we have the Ghost of Tromsø. The bleak beach located on the island of Endoyo in Norway is a place steeped in ghostly and supernatural tales. Known as Norway's longest beach, it is a white ash-like reach of shoreline that stretches for 3 kilometers and is situated between the dark, cold sea and the shadowy marshland, making it an ideal setting for ghostly stories and pagan awe. At night, the bright stars of the subarctic skies and the eerie darkness make for a perfect place for a moonlit walk, where one could listen for the voices of dead sailors and hidden sea trolls, which are trolls, and wights, which are wraiths. Locals claim that these trolls and wraiths search for victims in the night along this beach. On top of this, people on this island report that ghosts haunt each and every building downtown. But after doing further research on the town of 7,000 people, perhaps this is all due to the fact that the city center was built on an ancient graveyard, which would just make for a lot of sense. At our number 1 spot, we have the King William Island zombies. In the late 1840s, an Inuit community in the Arctic region of Canada witnessed one of the most unearthly and chilling visions in their land. A group of lurching figures appeared in the remote Arctic hunting camp near the southwest edge of King William Island with vacant eyes, blue skin, unable to speak, and barely alive. The Inuit, who were among the most isolated people on Earth, knew of Europeans but had never met a white person. They were all gathered in an igloo when the crouching footsteps of the stranger got closer, leaving everyone scared and frightened. The old man in the camp went out to investigate and came face to face with a disoriented figure who was touching the outside of the igloo with curiosity. The figure was cold to touch, and the old man realized that he had never in his life seen a devil or spirit like these beings. These figures were the last survivors of the Franklin expedition, who had buried their captain, seen their ship entombed by ice, and eaten the dead to survive. They were in the last days of their futile bid to escape the Canadian Arctic on foot and were still hundreds of kilometers from any sort of rescue. When the Inuit saw them off King William Island, historian Dorothy Eber called these scenes the Death Marches. The cove and beaches around King William Island were littered with the disturbing remnants of this expedition, including scraps of clothing and camps still littered with dead occupants. Decades later, researchers would confirm the Inuits' accounts of cannibalism when they found bleached human bones with their flesh hacked clean. Pretty horrifying, right?